Hello, I'm the Angry Spork, taking issue with G.I. Joe versus the $6 Million Man. Last week, Colonel Steve Austin was brainwashed into serving Cobra, subsequently helping to fight the Joes, who were escorting some world leaders to an historic peace summit. At the same time, Cobra Commander oversaw the seizure of the Infinity Center, the global economic hub in Switzerland, with lots of civilians to hold hostage. With the real American heroes fighting on two fronts, and against the formidable Bionic Man, someone has been pulled out of retirement to help. Mike Power, the Atomic Man. While featured in a previous review on this show, I feel some clarification is in order. The $6 Million Man series was a hit, and when something becomes popular, imitators are bound to pop up. Cue Hasbro creating the Atomic Man for their Adventure Team toy line.
Hello, lawsuit.
The original backstory, as told through a single-page ad, had Mike born disabled and spending his life building advanced atomic limbs as replacements. What exactly makes them atomic? Well, they're made of atoms. Everything's made of atoms. Shut up, I worked real hard on this stuff. The end result were legs that could run at 200 miles per hour, an arm that can lift 5 tons, and an eye that can see through 6 feet of solid steel. Either he never could figure out a synthetic skin, or he just really liked the translucent look of his limbs. But either way, he quickly proved himself worthy to join G.I. Joe Colton's team. His action figure had alternate suits and accessories, sold separately of course, for various adventure scenarios, including handling a Cobra, which feels awfully prophetic. But enough backstory. Let's roll the opening theme and continue with this review, because the alternative is to spend our time talking about toys from the 1970s. Issue 3's cover has Hawk taking a breather from taking a beating as Austin tussles with his copycat, even seeming to shatter his arm casing. Meanwhile, Lady J and Roadblock watch from a combat chopper above them. They spent days prepping to snipe those seats on Ticketmaster.com. We pick up with Steve holding General Hawk by the neck. Come on, Clayton. Give me one of those Go Joes. Dad, it's Yo-Joe. You were so embarrassing. Baroness uses a megaphone to tell the team inside the bank to threaten that they'll get the world leaders they're protecting dead or alive, and the Joe's only choice is whether they give them up. If Cobra needs to use force, then their CO will die first, so she decides to give them a minute to consider their situation. Major Blood and Zartan complain this is taking too long, that they should just destroy the bank, take the politicians, and get the operation done with instead of this prolonged game where Austin seems to be calling the shots. Baroness corrects them that she's in charge of this mission, could even make the two prove their worth, somehow, so that they can feel all accomplished, but she's top snake here. I put a lot of my own blood into this legacy, perhaps more than your body could ever afford. The cookies at the Cobra Blood Bank are just that good. The pleasure I'll get from their prolonged screams from watching them lose everything is far greater than the wham-bam rush you'll get from simply pulling a trigger.
She's a nice lady.
Blood and Zartan may feel jealous of how effective Colonel Austin is, but he's still their puppet, operated with a remote she takes from her belt, and she could shut him down for good and take the entire island with him in the process. Sounds ominous, doesn't it, folks? Inside the bank, Roadblock is arguing with Jay. He wants to fight back with his Gatling gun, while she points out that's a fast pass to a failed mission with all of them dead. Instead, she tells the bank manager to open the vault, which will take 2 minutes, and assures the U.S. President, Mexican President, and Canadian Prime Minister that the Joes will do everything they can to keep them safe. Back with Scarlett's team, they're almost halfway up the Infinity Center, observed by Cobra Commander through their security feeds. Storm Shadow asks to take them out, but CC tells them to be patient. Soon enough, they'll be where he wants them, and summarily executed for the whole world to see.
First, the crushing jaws, the unrelenting vice, then the venom. Then the mouthwash, because after all that running and fighting, they're bound to be all sweaty and gamey, and Cobra deserves nothing less than minty fresh breath.
A smoke screen on the 49th floor helps the Joes take out a room of bats, though their heads seem to come off rather easily anyway, explained as the bots being cheap bullet fodder to wear the team out. They are getting tired, having to run up the stairs and go hand to hand, conserving ammo for the undoubtedly armed commander, not to mention having enemies behind and ahead of them. However, Scarlett knows what she's doing, intentionally taking a direct path to their target, while any minute, Snake Eyes will get them control over the elevators and entrances. Specifically, entrance to the Baskin-Robbins 2 floors above. What's the point of stopping serpentine terrorists if you can't stop for a cone of raspberry truffle and mint chocolate chip? Snake has cut his way through several human Cobra goons. I guess their blood is made of black licorice. No wonder they're evil. Then proceeds to take out a few more in the control room, so he can engage manual override. Cobra Commander takes this in a very calm manner, firing his gun into the ceiling, and somehow hitting his security monitors. Wow, even the guy's bullets can't do anything right. He orders Storm Shadow to regain control of the controls, then calls the twins, Tomax and Xamot, to bring him the Joes' heads. Meanwhile, Steve is about to stomp General Hawk to see how red, white, and blue his blood is when he's interrupted by a pair of attack helicopters. And that's when he meets the Thanos to his dark side, the Snorks to his Smurfs, the Atomic Man, jumping from one of the choppers. Mike is actually a big fan of Austin, which is why it's so bittersweet having to fight him like this, starting off by catching his punch and throwing him into the nearby Cobras. Seizing this diversion, Zap opens the front doors of the bank with his bazooka, taking out some idling enemy soldiers before subsequent gunfire clears their path further. Jay helps Hawk to his feet, assuring that the world leaders are safe in the bank's vault. As more Joes arrive on the scene, Steve decides to get more serious against the knockoff cyborg. "I'm going to end you, pretty boy." "You think I'm pretty?" He tackles Mr. Power and begins to smush his skull with his bare hands.
"I'm crushing your head! I'm crushing your head!"
But this leaves him open to having those red glowing nodules pulled from his temples. Back at the Infinity Building, despite taking access from the enemy, the team is still taking the stairs because Scarlett doesn't want to risk something going wrong with the elevators. She radios for Snake Eyes once they reach the executive level, only to be met by Xamot and Tomax. The brothers make quick work of the Joes, knocking them down and sharing a congratulatory handshake afterward. Gotta admit, it was impressive how one of them managed to make gravy shoot out of Rakondo's chin. Scarlett calls for some ninja backup, but her silent partner has left the control room to deal with his rival, Storm Shadow. "Hello again, brother."
Brothers don't shake hands. Brothers gotta hug.
Issue 4's cover sees the Joes and Mike watching as Steve's mechanical arm seems to be going haywire. That software update was supposed to fix his buggy thumbs-up gesture. What the expletive, man? Free of manipulation, Colonel Austin realizes what's happened, asking how many he killed in Cobra's name. But his counterpart tells him it's not his fault, and he can still make things right as he crushes the nodes. Even Hawk tells him to pause the apologies and reparations since they've got some snake tail to kick. Blood and Zartan bemoan this turn of events, but Baroness tells them she knows what she's doing. Maybe all their complaining has made her want to defect, so she's sabotaging things now as a gesture of good faith. Laughing off the idea that Cobra's been beaten and Austin's claim that they'll pay, Baroness hits a switch on the remote she showed off earlier, activating her Plan B. She says the heroes will always underestimate them as she joins her fellows in a troop transport and blows her foes a kiss.
"Are you coming on to me?"
Hot crackers, I take exception to that.
"I'm not hearing a no."
Steve realizes what she means, ripping his right sleeve and telling the Joes that his now glowing bionic arm has a nuclear bomb inside, threatening not only the peace accord, but everyone on the island. Sheesh. If this is how Baroness handles a breakup, no wonder Destro doesn't show up in this story. Is Austin wearing one of those wellness bracelets? Wow, Cobra really did turn him to the dark side. After getting word that their contingency plan was engaged, with no way to stop it, the commander isn't happy about losing so useful an asset as Steve, but chalks it up as inevitable, confident that his reign shall begin anyway, and relays that the situation at the tower is under control. That earlier outburst aside, he's handling these setbacks pretty well. He must be reading Cobra Soup for the soul. The twins are taking their sweet time with Stalker and Rakondo, wanting to have some fun before they terminate them, and finally get some dialogue, having the same quirk as their animated counterparts, which does not go unnoticed.
"Hey, Stalker, look, they finish each other's sentences. Ain't that cute?
They even dress like idiots. Cute as a button, Kondo. No joke here, I just like this particular dig at the two. Scarlett is still trying to raise Snake, but, obligatory ninja fight with swords, shuriken, shards of glass after being sent through a window, that kind of thing. Anyway, seeing Storm Shadow lose has the commander order the twins to kill the soldiers, and as they're about to oblige, Scarlett bolos their necks together, throttling them. This not only frees her comrades, but also allows her to take their key card to the penthouse. The room service bill she charges to their account is gonna be huge. Two things. First, kinda clever that their gasps for air mirror each other, one being backwards of the other. Second, it's a miracle this worked at all, because they were initially too far apart for the redhead's trick to be effective. I guess one of them must have backed up out of surprise into the other, and somehow their one-sided neck guards didn't impede the bolo.
Take that, physics.
She calls Snake, saying they'll need him as they proceed, and anything he's doing, like, say, holding a blade to his rival's throat, can probably wait, so he leaves his opponent defeated and unmasked. As Steve's arm continues to go Super Saiyan, Lady J says there must be some way to stop the explosive. I think you mean disarm him? Power? No. I'll admit, I'm torn. That was a solid pun, but Lady J is attractive and therefore holds sway over my opinion. Dagnabbit, don't make me choose! Austin tells everyone to leave, since if Cobra designed it like any other bomb, removing his limb would likely trigger it. Hawk doesn't want to leave one of their own behind, but Roadblock and Rock and Roll lament that there doesn't seem to be any other choice, until Steve suggests the only other option. The pit of my elbow has one of those tiny reset switches. Anyone got a paperclip or a pen? He pulls a jetpack off a dead Cobra soldier and puts it on. I'm a man of action. Tell them to remember that about me. That's right. I was one of the co-creators of the Ben 10 series. He goes on to thank Mike for his help, and glad that he'll be the one bionic man after today. Mr. Power reciprocates, appreciative of the praise, if hesitant to take up the Colonel's mantle. Steve suggests everyone join the politicians inside the bank vault and its lead door, then asks Hawk for a favor, to tell a gal named Jamie Summers that he loves her, regretting not marrying her when he had the chance. While the last name is misspelled, it should be an O instead of a U, he's referring to The Bionic Woman, a spin-off series about a tennis pro who got a cybernetic upgrade of her own, though I guess this ignores that final TV movie in the franchise where they actually got married and became Bionic Man and Wife. Rather than following the sensible advice of seeking shelter, Hawk leads everyone in saluting Steve's sacrifice, and hoping they avoid the blast zone. Austin takes to the skies as fast and as high as he can, until the bomb in his arm detonates. We return to Switzerland, where Cobra Commander has made his escape, the Joes narrowly missing their chance to nab him. Scarlett tries to contact General Hawk, but every communication channel is wiped, and there's no traffic on the ground. Everything is dead silent. It's so quiet, you can hear the internet trolls laughing at their own bad jokes from their beanbag chairs. This is a result of the electromagnetic pulse from the nuclear explosion. In fact, it's even affecting the commander's getaway plane as it starts to lose power, so pilot Storm Shadow tells his boss to brace himself.
I brace nothing!
Which is why your teeth are all messed up and crooked. That's the real reason he wears that cloak. Sure enough, they're hit by the pulse and crash land in the snowy Alps. Hours later, the Canadian Prime Minister and Mexican President commend the Joes for their efforts for protecting them and making the world safer, before they take off to the States on an aircraft carrier. As Lady J notes, Cobra is licking their wounds, power has been restored, the peace accord was successfully signed, and countless lives were saved, though Hawk mournfully mentions they had some help from a friend. You may not be present physically, but you're certainly here in spirit, Chris Evans. Some nearby splish-splashing reveals that Steve Austin is totally alive, so take that, consequences! Helped out of the drink by Roadblock, the Colonel explains he strapped his mechanical arm to the flight pack so it'd fly upward on its own while he dropped into the ocean, though he did lose one of his legs in the process. He's not even broken up about it, making jokes while assuring that the Office of Scientific Intelligence will fix him up better than new. I guess Mike Power can't stand someone else getting attention, with a flare background as he says he did a good job while having sand in his joints from his private beach. Then all the non-retired Joes, who were in battle all day before he even showed up, took turns punching him in his atomic face. Though he does have a humbling moment when he reaches his right hand to shake Steve's missing one. But back in the Joe's base, as the reunited comrades are relaxing after a hard-won battle and suggesting mutiny next time Hawk wants to split them up, this happens. "Hey, y'all, pop some bubbly. Guess who's back? Champagne isn't necessary, Mike, but if you're offering, the Atomic Man, everyone, in the flesh and steel." Oh. You still got one working arm, Steve. Wouldn't be too hard to jab him in the solar plexus. OSI director Oscar Goldman is there too, shaking his wheelchair-bound friend's hand, promising to rebuild Austin bigger and better than before. On top of that, when satellites pick up Cobra Commander and Storm Shadow trudging from their downed plane, the Colonel offers to join the Joes when the snakes resurface. "I've got a bone to pick with Cobra, and a few to break. Maybe a few joints to dislocate. I'll play it by ear. Ooh, shattering eardrums!" With most of the world's governments having their backs, making G.I. Joe stronger than ever, Hawk welcomes the Bionic Man aboard, and helps him out of his chair. Mythbusters is filming an episode about how a one-legged man really would do in a butt-kicking contest. They ask Mike if he wants to re-enlist, but he would rather return to his retirement beach and government account.
Get me my blue windbreaker!
Before he leaves, he and Steve share an arm-wrestling handshake, showing cyborg solidarity as the comic concludes. That was G.I. Joe versus the $6 Million Man. It was pretty fun, though perhaps more appealing for a more niche audience. The last televised outing for the original Bionic series was in 1994, and in that time, there have been attempts at reviving it, alongside some references and parodies.
I've got to stop fantasizing about Lee Majors.
But not necessarily anything that sparked a wider interest in the franchise. Not to say there's anything wrong with a seven-figure cyborg, but there are some signs this will resonate more with a very narrow demographic. Steve does some impressive stuff, like chopping a plane in half, but his destructive power is mostly speculated upon. Much of the action we see him in is toying with a guy he could have killed in one hit, before grappling with someone more on his level. I could be wrong, or it was unintentional, but there seemed to be an expectation that the reader already be familiar with what the Colonel can do, all his accomplishments, so that we feel the weight of his supposed defection, and the danger he poses under Cobra's control. I don't think I ever watched the original show, though maybe some of the Bionic Woman when I was really, really young, so I have no particular attachment. That said, perhaps someone with even less awareness of the character than myself may not feel so invested. And while other IDW crossovers have seemed really outlandish, the connection of Mike Power as, technically, a G.I. Joe character born out of piggybacking on Lee Majors' performance is not only a deep cut, but really clever if you ask me. The story does kind of strain willing suspension of disbelief with Baroness's lackadaisical attitude to her mission. There's only so much the villain is so evil they want the heroes to suffer for a while can carry things along, even though they did seem to put genuine effort into rationalizing it. And perhaps it was the focus on the Hawk-Austin brawl that the argument between Roadblock and Lady J didn't feel very earned. You would expect some disagreement on strategy in this kind of situation, but for all the volatility of that background effect to emphasize Block's frustration, the build-up felt pretty blink and you'll miss it. Which I shouldn't have to tell you is really complicated when talking about a static medium. The story, for all its action and violence, seems to clean itself up quite a bit. Blood is discolored to downplay severity, dialogue feeling like it's meant to cater to those preferring not to have too serious cursing, just some word choices you don't really see these days, or in 2018. For all the oddities, though, it's still an enjoyable read. The characters interact well, though some Joes were whinier than others. Hawk has that classic grizzled vet with a sense of humor to match vibe, clearly cares for those under his command, will make the tough calls, and even put himself on the line for them. Cobra Commander seemed a tad different compared to other stories we've looked at, still arrogant and self-confident, but here it was displayed more in his attention to what may seem like unimportant details, like decorating his throne room or belittling a missile attack as a chest-puffing tactic. It's almost Lex Luthor-esque. And the more I thought about it, I noticed that the ladies of this franchise had considerable authority here. Baroness was clearly in charge and didn't let the other generals sway her because she felt she earned the indulgence of her cruelty. Scarlett effectively leads Team Turn Cobra into Swiss cheese, though was handled less aggressively by the twins than her male teammates, arguably because woman. Then you have Lady J, seeming to take command while Hawk was absent, not only keeping her team from jumping the laser-firing gun before the time was right, but also having the idea to keep the world leader safe inside a, well, safe. No one is torn down to prop them up, they just happen to be women who are either good at what they do or have flaws that could backfire on them. While maybe not obvious, I'd argue this is one of the better examples of strong female characters. Mike Power was mostly fine until the end when he got so braggadocious. Maybe it was meant as some kind of rascally charm, or at least distinguish him from Colonel Austin. I don't know what he had in the way of a personality in any other adaptation, but the one we were treated to here was not my favorite. The art is good, though perhaps some expressions look weird, or details a little obscured because they're seen at a distance. Nice update of the visuals on the Atomic Man's limbs, great detail on mechanical designs, and well-done action scenes, though there was a pacing hiccup a time or two that could make a single incident feel like someone teleported, such as Hawk's fight with Austin, and Cobra Commander just up and leaving may feel a little anticlimactic, even if his self-preservation is in character. There are corny lines, the vibe of older sensibilities, and maybe it would have made more sense to release this in the early 90s, but it's by no means bad. Being uninformed on Steve Austin's legacy is something of a hurdle, but it's one that can be surmounted, so you might still enjoy this, especially if you dig classic action figure cartoon adventures. I'm the Angry Spork, and man, have I got issues.
One more.